and welcome to Connected episode 216. And if you celebrate Halloween, I guess, happy Halloween. Our show this week is brought to you by Pingdom, Linode, and PayPal. I'm your host, Stephen Hackett. I am joined by both of my co-hosts. I have Mike Hurley here. Hello, Mike.
Quora tells me that Canadians say, hey, how's it? So, hey, how's it? I'm in Canada right now.
How's what?
It.
How's it? Okay.
How's it?
Mm-hmm. And we have freshly off an airplane, Federico Vitici.
Hello, people of the internet. I'm back in Rome, and I'm sort of jet-lagged, but also I feel pretty good. I can do the show. I'm excited to do the show. I'm happy to be here with you too.
The basic underpinnings of this episode say it should be a disaster, right? I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi in a hotel in Canada. Federico just got off a plane, having been in New York for 36 hours. It feels like they said it couldn't be done, but we're going to have a great show. It doesn't matter because we're back together again.
Mm-hmm.
That's you set a bar now that we have to hit in this episode.
I don't think it'll be very difficult.
I don't think so either.
I think we can do
yes, we are slowly working our way back to normal. Last week's episode was live in New York. Federico, you missed that, but Marco Arment joined us in your stead. And again, a big thanks to Marco for joining us. And if you came out to the Live Connected or the Live Upgrade we had in Chicago, thank you so much. It's always fun to get out and meet people. It's why we do the live shows. And it was just a really fun week. And if you're a Relay FM member, 4 seconds ago, I sent the newsletter and we sort of did a tour recap in there. You can see some pictures and hear more about our week. So, we plan on doing more of this. We're already kind of talking about some plans for 2019. So if you didn't see us this time out on the road, hopefully we can meet in the future.
Catch us next time. Come to WWDC.
Yes, we will be there. And we'll be in some other cities probably sometime next year. Just time will tell. We introduced Marco as Federico's American cousin, but I see a tweet now that makes that more confusing. What am I looking at, Federico?
This is a picture of the person we had join us last time. What is your cousin's name, by the way?
Marcus, because he's of ancient Roman origin. Yeah. He's Marcus Armenti is his real name. And he was at the event yesterday. Actually, my cousin Marcus was at the event.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's really shot to prominence. Just one podcast appearance, and now he's getting invited to Apple
He opened
events.
his blog, marcus.org, recently. And, first blog post that he had got invited to an Apple event was a really impressive career path, honestly, for Marcus. He was there. We had a good time. Yeah. I complimented him on the podcast. Being a first-time guest, I think he did a good job.
I think so, too.
Mm-hmm.
During the live show, I shared some unhappiness with the dark theme in Mojave, and one of its sort of frustrations, for me at least, is that I can't use the light theme with a dark menu bar and dock. And so I'd asked the audience, if you've come across a way to do this, please let me go. And Connected listener John emailed me and said, hey, there's this stuff you can do in the terminal, which Mike is very comfortable with, to make this happen. So you can go in here and you basically set a preference, a default to right type thing.
Is it sudo kill all something?
Kill all dock.
Yeah.
Sudo kill all light.
Kill all light.
Sudo turn off the lights.
Kill all light. Wow.
I think
Sudo kill all happiness.
You need a hyphen in there, so it's sudo hyphen kill all light.
You know what? I forgot the tilde. That's the problem. I knew it was going to get me. // kill all dock. Right?
I think that's it. So just type that directly into your terminal and it'll be fine. There'll be a link to this.
What's the one that erases everything? Isn't there some well-known command that just destroys everything?
Sudo die. It's it's the command.
It's like the Four Horsemen type dealio just for the Macintosh.
I've not had the opportunity to try this, so I admit that I'm passing this along without having experienced what it actually does. But my understanding is that it will let you do the light appearance, but with the dark dock and mini bar, which I prefer. So go check that out. That'll be in the show notes. Federico, where are show notes this week?
Somewhere. They're somewhere. And
he has no idea what episode number this is.
/connected/216 because that would be the episode number.
I could have typed any number into the document and he would have read it. Like episode 4207. We're really getting up there.
I have a basic understanding of our position in the number of shows. I know that it's after 200 but before 250. So any number there could work in theory.
Anything.
But it's 216.
We were recently passed by Upgrade in episode numbers because we take the week between Christmas and New Year's off, and Jason does not.
An Upgrade never sleeps. That's the problem.
Neither does Federico, apparently.
Federico, what did you think of New York City?
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
So I've only seen Brooklyn. I'm afraid, of course, I didn't have time.
I really am pleased. I think that is the best for you. I don't know if you could have handled Manhattan. Stephen did not like it. I don't think you would like it.
So, okay, so let me go ahead. New York is very cold. The morning of the event...
This isn't a general statement. It does get warm there too, just so you know. I don't want you to think that it's just like an Arctic wasteland.
At this time of the year, and on the 30th of October... It was very cold compared to the 30th of October in Rome. Mm-hmm. It was like 10 degrees Celsius less than Rome. And I don't want to say that I was freezing, but it was very cold.
It's been cold. It's been cold for sure. It was cold when we were there.
Something that I noticed immediately is that I think traffic in Rome gets a bad rap. People in New York, the way that they drive, they're basically honking all the time.
It's effectively like the honking powers the vehicles.
Yes,
I don't understand it. It's
the
wild.
First 5 minutes, I was thinking, well, maybe there's some problem. There's I don't know, like an accident ahead, or somebody driving in a funny way, and everybody's honking at this person or something. But then I realized, no, everybody does it all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's really like, it makes you nervous. It's because you always fear that something's about to happen.
Yep.
And so I asked, and a few people told me that it used to be worse, like in the late 80s or something. And I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody, I think Casey maybe, told me that regulations were passed to so that people would honk less. Like there's fines or something if you honk without an actual reason. Still, even with these regulations, if they exist, I'm not sure. People honk all the time, and everybody it feels like there's road work everywhere. And it's quite dirty, at least the area of Brooklyn where I was. People honking all the time, and everybody seems very nervous and constantly in a hurry. I didn't get any chill vibes from Brooklyn.
Yeah, see, that's funny because Brooklyn is the chill area.
So I can only imagine how Manhattan is going to be.
I'm happy that you did not go to Manhattan on your own. I don't think that you would like it without someone that could show you around and show you why it's a cool place. But it is a crazy busy place.
By myself.
I'm happy that you were in Brooklyn. I think that was for the best.
Mm-hmm. So,
did you eat any emoji? Did you see any?
No.
Did you gobble on any emoji while you're there? Munch, pizzas and bagels?
No, nothing. I brought food supplies with me because I knew that the evening that I arrived, we had a meetup with Jason scheduled at 7, and I knew that I didn't want to go grab something for dinner by myself in Brooklyn, and so I just brought some snacks with me. And the following day I had the Apple breakfast. I had a breakfast burrito, which was surprisingly good, like a mini burrito for breakfast. It was fine, really. It was fine.
Good. This just continues your love affair with Mexican food.
Yes, and Apple had set up, I think, a taqueria in front of the Opera House. This Mexican
Jason
place.
was telling me about this. They basically just hired out a Mexican restaurant for the day.
And it was very nice. It was very nice. I had a taco I think huevos con carne. It was very good.
Oh, yeah.
It was very good. So I didn't have any bagels, didn't have any New York pizza. And then at lunch, I was hanging with Casey, and we just found a Shake Shack nearby, and we just ate a burger. But
Good
I didn't
man.
get the shake. I didn't get the shake, though.
It's okay. It's okay. The shakes are good. I think the burgers are the best part of Shake Shack.
Oh,
So-
yeah, it was really delicious.
Well, you
as
did
always.
at least one New York thing. You ate Shake
because
Shack.
that's a New York thing?
Yeah, there is a literal like shack, which was the first Shake Shack in I think Washington Square Park, which is still there. So that is a New York native meal. So you did
nice.
that at least.
Okay.
I want to show you Manhattan one day. One day we're gonna do it. I want you to see it. Steven didn't like it, and I don't think you'll like it, but I still want to show you it anyway.
I feel like I need to be in an extremely relaxed mood if I were to visit Manhattan. Like, I didn't help that I was in a hurry, tired, doing this crazy thing of 36 hours by myself.
Yes, that was the
I don't-
problem. Here's the thing, though, right? There's the difference between you and Steven, though, is you're used to Rome, like the center of Rome, and
Yeah.
I stand by that the center of Rome feels more busy than Manhattan does.
I think it feels busy in a different way, though. I feel like...
Well, it's because there's no space to walk or drive in Rome, and there is space in New York, and that's the
But
difference.
Judging from the pictures that I've seen, I think, because I know myself, I think all the skyscrapers and the tall buildings kind of make me nervous and
They
anxious.
like trap you in. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
whereas the the monuments and the fountains and the
They're all
ancient
falling
stuff
down.
in
You
Rome,
can see through them.
I think
Right.
it makes like there's a combination of crazy traffic, but also this nostalgia, this beauty at the center of Rome, that sort of counterbalances the traffic and the messiness of people. I don't know what I'm gonna feel in Manhattan with the tall buildings and the honking and the taxis and all the advertisements. Like, I feel like, those billboards with the animated graphics,
Yep.
and pictures everywhere. I don't know how I'm gonna react to that, but I want to see
Okay.
it someday. So
Stephen, what is your review of Manhattan?
Thumbs down.
Oh, no. Okay.
I mean, I shared it with you when we were there. It's just way too busy for me. Like, and I understand it's like that is that right. Like, there are people who thrive on that, and I can see that and I can understand it, but it's just not for me. I mean, I'm a homebody. I live in a pretty small city. Like, it's just really different. And I didn't like in London. London is busy and crazy too, but Manhattan just feels like that, like in an aggressive way that I didn't anticipate. I had a nice time. We did a bunch of sightseeing. We had the show. Like, I enjoyed my time there, but it's not a place that I would go like on vacation or anything.
So I want to balance this out and just to say that I absolutely adore New York. I love Manhattan. It feels like home to me when I'm there, and I would move to Manhattan and or New York in a heartbeat.
oh my god.
What can I say? I love it. I love it there. It's the one city in the world other than London that I feel like I understand. Like, I can just walk out into the street at any time of day and just like make it work. Like, it's great. I love it. Everything is just a block away. There's always something it's great. I absolutely love Manhattan. I love New York. So there is our balance for this episode. And honestly, we should probably just talk about this for the next 90 minutes because I think it's interesting, but probably people are here to hear us talk about new Macs and iPads. So we should probably get to that, right? I would expect. Should we do that? All right, let me thank Pingdom first for supporting this week's episode. Pingdom are a fantastic company who make website performance monitoring super easy. Everybody loves fast websites, and there are lots of your favorite websites that use Pingdom to make sure that their site is running smoothly. These include Amazon, Slack, BuzzFeed, even Relay FM. These are just some of the companies that use Pingdom to take care of their website monitoring. Websites are complicated. There's no other way to say it. There's so many things going on these days, and little independent things can go wrong and can break. Like, your website can be working fine, but your user registration and login functionality could be down. Well, with Pingdom, you can monitor everything independently. You can monitor checkout functionality. You can monitor specific pages. Pingdom can make sure that you're having the smoothest site experience possible available to your users. And if disaster strikes, they will let you know immediately. And you can customize your notification options with them. It's really, really cool. All Pingdom needs is your URL, and they will take care of the rest. Go to pingdom.com/relayfm for a 14-day free trial with no credit card required. Then when you sign up, use the code CONNECTED, and you'll get 30% off your first invoice. That is pingdom.com/relayfm and the code CONNECTED for 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom for their support of this show, our website, and Relay FM.
Okay, so we're going to dive into products. This was all about products, except for the weird part about the Apple Store in the middle. Before we did that, though, I wanted to ask you guys something. I haven't watched the keynote a second time. We're recording early today, and normally if we do this, I try to slice in a second viewing. But it seems like Tim Cook was just very excited about everything. Like he had way too much coffee.
Here's the thing. I think Tim really enjoyed the cheering. And this is not a thing. I understand it, right? But I think the crowd, and you can attest to this, Federico, seemed very excited for the entire time.
There were a lot of Apple Store employees, I think, with the blue T-shirts, and Tim was constantly looking up because there was a second level, sort of a balcony type setup in the theater, and there were a lot of employees there, and so I think he really enjoyed the cheering that was going on.
So I think that he was feeding on that. I think.
Yeah.
It's always strange to me. This is a press event. And that's how I think about it, because our friends in the press are there. It does seem like Apple has employees. They have retail employees, at least there yesterday. And so the cheering was sort of distracting, honestly. And I find it a little off-putting because it's this is a press event. Press most of the time aren't cheering for things. They're there to work. It's just sort of a surreal thing for me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm old.
Federico, did you cheer at anything? Okay.
Yes, I did for the iPad Pro, and for Lana Del Rey because I love her, and so she's awesome. And I was really happy that I also got a free musical performance out of the event, which was very
I thought
nice.
We'd moved past the age of musical performances. There hasn't been one in a long time.
Yeah, me too.
But I guess the venue that they were in kind of demanded it. They were in an opera house. Come on, you've got to have some. And you're in the Brooklyn Academy of Music. You kind of got to do it. And I think it's cool that they did.
We are going to talk about some Mac products today. We're going to go in the order Apple went in. And that means starting with the MacBook Air. There had been lots of conversation about the low end of the Mac lineup, and there's going to be a new consumer laptop, and they didn't really do that. They sort of took the MacBook Air and made it new again. So real quickly, it is the same wedge design, but in a smaller package because it has smaller bezels. Those thick silver aluminum bezels are gone. The Air, of course, the highlight here is a Retina display. It is a little bit less bright than the MacBook Pro. There's no P3, so that none of that wide color gamut stuff. No True Tone, but it's Retina. Honestly, that's...
Oh, I didn't know it didn't have the wide color.
It does not.
Okay.
Which is fine. It's still better.
It kind of tricked me because I'm sure that's why they did it. Not to trick, but just to make... Because I think they said something 40% more color or something.
Yeah, they did say more color, yeah.
Yeah, but not all the color to get to the wide color gamut. Which again, I think is fine. Totally fine. 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. The SD card slot and USB-A ports have been banished. It has Touch ID without a touch bar, which may be the most interesting thing to me on this computer.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm sure you've already mined the Keybase.
Yes.
That is where the power button used to be, and the key is blank. So how do you turn this laptop on?
You push it. That button pushes down, same as the touch bar machines.
I was about to say it's weird that they didn't print anything on it. I'm assuming they can't. I bet they can't print on it, right?
So that Touch ID thing is you pried it off my Touch Bar MacBook Pro and stuck it on a MacBook Air. It looks the same. It acts the same.
Yeah. So is on the Touch ID one, that's also the power button, just a blank key?
Yes.
Okay.
It actually is a button. It depresses to do the power stuff. So it doesn't look like it would, but it does press down. That's a good question because
which means that every time someone uses Touch ID, they accidentally press the button. I'm sure that
no, you just rest your finger on it. How strong are your index finger muscles? What are you doing?
Very. You wouldn't even believe. I have no control over them.
Very strong.
It has the T2 chip that we saw in the iMac Pro and the MacBook Pro, and it's doing all of its T2 type stuff. So it's doing the secure boot process stuff. It is managing the SSDs. It is keeping your FaceTime camera safe. This does mean that this has super fast SSD performance. That seems to be kind of where Apple's going. Marco said that on last week's Connected. That would make him happy if all Macs move to the T2 sort of world, and it seems like that's happening.
Yeah, if this one got it, they're all going to get it, right? Because this is
the bottom of the line.
In theory.
And what's pretty cool is Apple is making the cases for the Retina MacBook Air out of aluminum that is salvaged during the construction process of the iPad Pro. You said something very hurtful in Upgrade yesterday that I need to address.
I just think it's hilarious. Okay, go on.
You, I believe, I don't have the quote in front of me, but you said it was the perfect metaphor that,
it is.
that Macs were being built out of the remnants
shavings of iOS devices.
iOS devices.
I think it is a beautiful metaphor that says absolutely everything you need to know about what the products that Apple sells. Like, they sell so many more iOS devices. They are literally making...
No, it's just the iPad. It's just the iPad.
That's what they said for now.
They sell so many more iPads.
They just mentioned it. My expectation is it's also iPhones, but like they just haven't spoken about it because they just said that like because they didn't talk about the iPhone. Like they can't be selling that many of this iPad or making of that many of this iPad that they could use just the shavings of this iPad to make all these Macs because they're all coming out at the same time. Like how could they have done that, right? Like
maybe they've been like sweeping up for a while.
No, I expect it is all aluminium that is being used in iOS devices. It's just being collected up, and
I'm sure it is. I just wanted to share my.
It is funny to me. I'm sorry, like it's funny, right? Like it is funny. It's kind of just like it's a very cool thing that they're doing, but it's like that it shows the misbalance of iOS devices to Macs now. That iOS devices are so much smaller than Macs, but they make so many of them disproportionately that they can use the literal shavings to make the bodies of the other products. It's funny to me.
It's super cool though, right? Like they're not having.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like this is a real step forward. Like okay, like it was either this or you had to stop using aluminium, like in the long run, right? Because it was bad for the environment. This is awesome. I mean, of course, the problem is they're still doing it for the iPhones, but they're at least having some benefit out of the process that they're able to make other products out of recycled aluminium. I hope that at some point that they can try and push some of this into the iPhone line as well, so they become partly recycled, right? Like you make one and then you use the shavings of that one for the next one, like that kind of thing, you know? I would hope that they can try and make this more of like a sustaining thing going into the future. It'd be cool.
And it seems like you would never know this. Like in your mind, you may be picturing like those bouncy balls that they make out of recycled rubber. So it's like all different color bouncy ball stuff together, right? Like
that's what I would love, though. I would absolutely love to have a MacBook made out of the shavings of iPhone XR aluminium.
That would look crazy.
How cool would that look? It would look incredible.
It would look like your iOS home screen.
It would. No, my home screen is pretty chill right now. At least the photo, anyway.
I believe Greg called it unicorn vomit once on Cortex.
I think it was clown vomit.
Clown vomit.
But yeah, one or the other.
A unicorn ate a clown.
And then threw it
out
up.
Came your home screen. Anyways, so this is, by all appearances, a new MacBook Air. It's the design that people liked so much.
Oh, Federico, did you see one?
I saw one. I honestly didn't even bother to touch it.
Okay.
I took a picture of it. It looked all right. But I went to check out the Mac Mini because I was more interested in that.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
So yeah.
So it's 2.75 pounds, which is like getting closer and closer to MacBook territory, which we could talk about the relationship between these machines. Pricing, just briefly, starts at $11.99 for a dual-core i5. You can go up to 16 gigabytes of RAM and up to 1.5 terabytes worth of, again, all SSD storage. There's been some conversation around the CPU. So this is a 1.6 gigahertz Core i5 is what they call it. It's dual core. It turbos up to 3.6 gigahertz. Turbo. It seems like this is a processor that is more closely related to what is in the 12-inch MacBook than what was in the old Air and what is currently in the 2-port MacBook Pro, which I would have bet money would have gone away after this machine came out, but it seems like this MacBook Air is going to be closer to the MacBook in terms of performance. I don't want to go too far into this because these things have not been reviewed by people we trust. They have not been benchmarked by people we trust. The clock speed says it should be noticeably faster than the 12-inch MacBook, but it's not going to be as flexible of a machine performance-wise as the old MacBook Air was in its day. And so I think some people are upset about that. I think that's understandable. I want to hold judgment. I wrote this morning on 512. I want to reserve judgment until we see what this machine is like in the real world. You know, you're getting two Thunderbolt ports. You're getting 12-hour battery life. It's in a fanless design. This seems like it could be a really great consumer notebook. And that's fine if it can't do Final Cut. Like, this is not what this machine is for. So I think people who are like really upset about this maybe need to take a breath. Let's see how it actually performs, and then we can talk about it when we know more.
I don't think that it's fine if it can't do Final Cut. Like, the MacBook Air was such an important machine for me, and it was where I started doing all of my stuff, right? Like, I think it would be a shame if it can't handle that stuff better than the MacBook can. I think it would be a shame because it's more expensive than the MacBook, right? Like, it feels like it fits in the line. I think it would be a shame, honestly. Like, but at the same time, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I think that this looks like a mighty fine computer for most people. And I think that for most instances, it would be really great, right? Like, it looks really cool, right? Like, it's got a lot of cool stuff in it, especially Touch ID, I think is awesome. But I think it would be a shame if it handles the Pro apps as bad as the MacBook does, because it's not good.
Yeah, no, the MacBook is not good for that. One difference, though, between now and then is that you can get a MacBook Pro with a higher wattage CPU, which means it can run hotter and run hotter longer for $100 more. So, like, in the day when you were starting out, to go from a MacBook Air to a MacBook Pro
would have been a lot more money. Yeah,
at least more than $100. I still feel like Apple didn't really clear up their product line. Like, if anything, it's more confusing now.
So I have a tweet here from a guy called Jamie West who sent it to you. This is the current like offerings from Apple. It's MacBook Air previous generation, current generation MacBook Air, MacBook Pro 13-inch without Touch Bar, MacBook Pro 13-inch, and MacBook Pro 15-inch. And Jamie asked you, Stephen, is this the most laptops Apple has ever offered at one time?
It's pretty close. So, like, in the G4 days, you had the 12 and 14-inch iBook. Then you had the 12, 15, and 17-inch PowerBook. So this is the most, as far as I can think of, that we've had. You know, for a while, Apple had the MacBook Air and the MacBook and then the MacBook Pros, but there were fewer size options. So, like, it is confusing. And so the thing I always talk about is, like, if you have $1,100, $1,200 and you walk into a store, what do you buy? That's more confusing now. And what I was really hoping for is that there'd be a really clear answer. Say, hey, if you're going off to college, your kid's going off to school, whatever, you just need a notebook. What do you buy? Like, what Mac do you buy? I really want the MacBook Air today, this new MacBook Air, to be the default answer. I think it probably still will be, again, depending on where those benchmarks end up. If this thing is only 5% faster than the MacBook, then, like, what's the MacBook doing? The MacBook has one fewer port. The port is less useful. It only weighs, like 0.7 pounds less? Like, why does that machine exist? Why isn't this the thin and light? So they're still just like, the waters are still muddy. But I'm glad this machine is here because I think it does show that Apple is paying attention to this market. I just think that they haven't quite gotten all the way where I think a lot of us would like for them to be.
I think the price is the hardest part, though. Like, it coming in at $1,200, I think is difficult. I think that's the difficult thing. And I think that it's not going to help the people that didn't know what to do before. Like, you know, this, and I think this is why the existing MacBook Air still exists at $999, because people want that price point, and this machine should have replaced the $999 but it hasn't. And I can see why. Like, the technology says it's I can see why it's there, but I really feel like that price point should have been the thing that they were trying to hit first.
And I guess you could leave things out like the T2 and the Touch ID, and my guess is then you have a $999 laptop in Apple land. But if Apple is going to take the time to revise this notebook and they didn't put this stuff in, then it's behind again in only a couple of years. And so
sure.
My hope, so today where we are, my hope moving forward is that in the next year or 18 months, Apple can bring the price of the Air down even to like $1,099, like even $100 less is a big deal in this market, and then kill the $999 MacBook Air. Because it's a $200 gap, I understand why it's still there. But if they can drop it $100, get rid of the old one, that's a better situation than where we are now, I think.
Yep, I agree. This is a good machine. I just think that there are questions about this machine, which there isn't for any of the other stuff, really. I think everything else that they announced was pretty much at the home run, but not this one. So it's close.
If I had someone in my life looking for a notebook, I think this is what I would tell them, because it seems to be the best balance between like performance and size. Again, not knowing the full benchmark story. But I would definitely if someone's looking at a 12-inch MacBook or this, I 100% would recommend this. It's not that much bigger. You get 2 ports. It will be faster. And the disk access will be way faster than on the MacBook. To me, increasingly, the more I think about this, I just don't know why the MacBook is still around. At its price point and its performance, I just don't quite get it.
Yeah, this was my only takeaway from this segment of the event. I don't understand what's the role of the MacBook at this point. It seems like this is the basic computer that, unless you want to buy a MacBook Pro, this is the one you should get. I don't understand why you would be interested in the MacBook at this point. It sort of feels like a repeat of the situation that used to be years ago. We used to have the MacBook and the MacBook Air, like the previous generation MacBook. And then Apple simplified the product line, if I'm not mistaken. And we only had the MacBook Air, which was the one that I bought and that I used for many, many years, the 2011
the greatest Mac that Apple's ever made. It's just so incredible, right?
I love that computer. I loved that computer. It was great. And then they reintroduced the MacBook in 2015, and it feels like we're hitting that point again of over-complicated product line, and we need to bring back simplification. It's just confusing why we have 2 similar computers, and one is better now, but the other is still around. I don't get it. So I'm not in the market for a MacBook Air, but it looks like a fine computer. I'm interested, if only from a conceptual standpoint, in the benchmarks, because I think Mike makes a great point about even if this is the computer that you want to start with and you're going off to college, I think it's important that you're able to run these pro apps for creative uses, because I can relate to the idea of first Mac, first time I'm starting to play with something creative that maybe in the future could become my job, maybe. So yeah, we'll see what the benchmarks are like.
And it really doesn't need to run them well, but it needs to be able to do things like the MacBook can't, which is
exactly.
If I'm rendering in rendering in Final Cut and plugged in, the battery drains. That was a problem that I had with the MacBook. I understand what's going on here, but that shouldn't be happening. So we'll see, I guess. We'll see. But we should talk about happier things. But before we do, let me thank Linode for their support of this week's episode. Linode will give you access to a suite of powerful hosting options for you to start your own virtual server. You can run it in the Linode cloud. You can get it set up in under a minute, and their prices start at just $5 a month. Linode offer industry-leading performance with native SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and Intel E5 processors. This is the best stuff that you can get. They have 10 data centers spread across the world, meaning you can serve your customers faster than than ever before. Everything is manageable via the command line, which we all know that I love, and they have an API that allows you to easily automate tasks or develop custom applications in the Linode cloud. All of their pricing tiers feature hourly billing. They have a monthly cap on all plans and add-on services like backups and load balancers, and they have absolutely fantastic pricing options available. They have high memory plans that start with 16 gigabytes of RAM or more, and that's super awesome, but their regular plans start at just $5 a month, and you can get 1 gigabyte of RAM on that plan. As a listener of this show, if you sign up right now at linode.com/connected, that's linode.com/connected, you'll support us and also get $20 credit towards any Linode plan. So if you sign up for that 1 gigabyte of RAM plan, you have 4 months that you can try it out for. They also have a 7-day money-back guarantee on all their plans, so there's absolutely nothing to lose. Go to linode.com/connected to learn more, sign up, and take advantage of that $20 credit, or use the promo code CONNECTED2018, Connected 2018 at checkout. Our thanks to Linode for their continued support of this show and Relay FM.
All right. It's here. It's real. The Mac Mini is alive.
Can't believe it. Even though I knew it was going to happen, I can't believe that it's happened. It's great. They had a great video. They were making fun of it, which I enjoyed. Right?
Oh, it
very
was
good.
amazing. The video was
very
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
So, Federico, I think we should start with you. How excited are you about this machine? Because I know, I don't know if we did mention this on the show, that like you need a new computer. And you were kind of waiting for this.
Yes. I'm very excited. I just discussed this with Sylvia, and we're going to do it. I'm going to buy a Mac Mini for a variety of reasons. So earlier this year, our Synology home server died a very ugly death. And we realized that just a few weeks were needed to realize that we needed to find an alternative to our home server, because we really like using Plex and sort of having a backup space for all of our stuff, essentially. Then, second factor, I realized that I don't really need a portable Mac computer myself, because when I'm at home and I'm doing podcasts, I could use a desktop Mac. And if I'm traveling, I can just use Sylvia's MacBook Pro. So there's really no need for me to have a portable MacBook. We're in the process of buying new furniture and changing a few things in our apartment, just because we wanted to try something new, try a different layout, buy a bunch of new stuff. And one of my wishes was I want to get a new desk. I want to get like a slightly bigger desk, and I want to have like a different setup, more elegant cable management, for example. I would like to have ideally a bigger display, and so we sort of I proposed the idea of what if Apple announces a Mac Mini. This was like this summer. I was talking to Sylvia and I was like, what if Apple announces a Mac Mini, and I could probably end up with a new desk, a new 4K display, and a Mac Mini, and everything would be nice and neat, and cable management done right, and I could sell my MacBook Pro. And so I came into this event hoping that Apple would actually also announce their own display, but Apple is not doing that, which is fine. I'm gonna buy a display from somebody else. So I'm gonna buy a Mac Mini. I'm still not sure what configuration I want to get. Ideally, I would like to future-proof this machine as much as possible.
I think you're going to have
so we
to,
can talk
right?
about that.
I don't think they're going to update this again very soon.
I'm in the market for 4K or 5K display recommendations. Ideally, I wouldn't want to get the LG one because I think it looks really ugly with the black plastic around it.
I don't think you're going to find anything nicer.
I know, but if anybody has recommendations for a nice 4K or 5K display that looks nicer than the LG one,
if you're starting to look for like decent stuff in the 4K, 5K range, they end up becoming gaming monitors, which have all kinds of garishness.
No, there's plenty of Dell stuff out there. It's way better than it used to be.
Oh yeah, you're right.
All right, so my requirements are, it needs to, if it's a gaming monitor and it supports the high refresh rates, that's fine. I actually kind of like that. It needs to work with the Mac Mini, of course. and it also needs to work with the new iPad Pros. So I would like to have a single display that I can use with my Mac Mini and I can use with my iPad Pro. So that was the dream, and we're gonna do it. So I'm really happy that there's a new Mac Mini, because it means I can simplify and I can actually rethink my entire desk setup with this new machine.
So, Stephen, what is this Mac Mini?
Well, it's for pros because it's space gray.
Hey, I'm a pro.
You are a pro.
I do podcasting.
Yeah.
Why would you lead your sentence with that? Like, well, it's for pros. Like,
Because I think that Apple saying space gray is for pros is stupid. But whatever.
I'm pro.
You are a pro.
Well, the Mac Mini, the MacBook Air comes in space gray too.
Yeah. It's a pro as long as you just use Pages and Keynote. You'll be fine.
It's a professional web browsing machine.
Oh,
Chromebooks. That's what we all want.
no, we don't. Okay, so let's get into this. From the outside, this looks like the same Mac Mini we've known for a long time, but like we said, it's in space gray now. But inside, it's all new. Apple put the Mac Mini down, got a big ice cream scooper, scooped out all the guts, and put all new guts in, which is exactly how hardware engineering works, I'm pretty sure.
Oh. It's like pumpkin carving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The cooling is all new, and we will soon see why. Every single Mac Mini is at least a quad-core CPU. So this was the big complaint in 2014, where they took my beloved quad-core Mac Mini, which I have at home and I'm replacing now. They got rid of it and made them all dual-core, which was a huge step backwards. They led the conversation with they're all quad-core, but you can go up to a 6-core i7 if you want to. Around back, we have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 USB-A ports. Again, the T2 is present doing its T2 stuff. There's no SD card slot because that's gone now, except for the iMac and iMac Pro. And because it's the T2 and this is a new modern Mac as I wished for last week, it is all SSD, no spinning disk, no Fusion drive. All SSD. You can go up to, I believe, 2 terabytes of storage on these things now.
As far as the Happyometer goes, you got pretty much everything you wanted for this Mac Mini.
I did, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about, but I want to lead my opening statement on the Mac Mini is this is great. Like, this is the machine that I wanted to replace my home server with. This is a machine that if I was building a desktop for a family member, I would strongly look at this over the iMac, especially because the iMac didn't get updated, which we'll talk about in a little while. It's really great that they have seemed to listen to what people were using the Mac Mini for. So the old Mac Mini was $499, and it came from the idea, I still think like the 2014 Mac Mini was still rooted in the idea that it's for switchers. And we've talked about this on the show a bunch. Switchers don't want a desktop. Switchers want to go buy a MacBook or a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro. Again, that's confusing, and that's why that's a problem.
Or an iPad.
Probably not an iPad, but
yep, definitely iPad.
Desktop switchers are not. They still exist because they're all emailing me right now. But like on the whole, it's a much smaller market than it used to be. And what has happened to the Mac Mini is enthusiasts have looked at it and said, "Hey, I need a Mac for something. This thing's really small and quiet. I'll just buy one to stick in my office or under my TV, or I'm going to fill an entire rack of them with because I'm Mac Stadium and this is what we do for a living." Like, it's such a versatile machine, and Apple has created a new version of it that speaks to that versatility. So I've had this thing, we've talked about it before, where the iMac, from that cheap one that I complained about last week in New York to the most expensive $5K, there's an iMac for everybody. If you want one, you can get one with just the specs you want. And the Mac Mini now falls into that as well. I have some concerns about the low-end one, but the Mac Mini is now a much broader system than it's ever been. And I think that's a good thing because people use them for anything you can imagine. So that's all really good, and that makes me happy.
Steven, can you explain to me what this is gonna sound stupid? I'm sorry. What's the difference between Core i5 and Core i7? Is it just like the i7? It sounds bigger, so I assume it's faster.
It's two more eyes. So as you move up from let's just talk about i5 and i7. Depending on what exact CPU we're talking about, the clock speeds are higher. Sometimes the core counts are higher. Again, depending on which ones we're talking about, and things like the buses maybe they may be able to work on a faster bus. They may have more built-in memory. So it's the processors are better as you move up the line.
I just sent you a screenshot of the setup that I would like to have.
You should. You bought the big boy there if you're looking at that one.
I like that this Intel Core i7 has an ottava generazione.
Yeah, it's in Italian. So I recognize the numbers, so that's good. And the turbo boosts are also faster as you move up.
Yeah.
What's weird about the Mac Mini, to hit $799, they put in a quad-core i3, which doesn't turbo boost, so it doesn't ramp up its speed under load, which means like day-to-day use, the i3 would be totally fine. Like if you're just buying a family computer, the i3 is more than enough. But if you want to do anything past that, it's worth at least going to the i5 because you get the better speeds and the better and the turbo boost period. So I went for the i5. Federico, you're looking at the i7 for what you want to do, doing a Plex server and like transcoding stuff. I would definitely spend the money on the i7. Yeah, I think what you're looking at makes sense for what you want to do. What's bananas is that you can spend $4,200 on a Mac Mini. That's a 6-core i7, 64 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabyte SSD, 10 gig Ethernet, like the iMac Pro. That is a lot of computer, but it has, like all Mac Minis, the integrated Intel graphics. You cannot buy a Mac Mini. You can't buy a Mac Mini with a discrete GPU.
Is that bad?
Struggled with this over the last, I guess since yesterday, trying to understand where the Mac Mini fits in relation to the other Macs, especially when it comes to GPU performance. And where I've landed is the Mac Mini is, roughly speaking, the 13-inch MacBook Pro. So I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro. I have the fast processor in mine. I've got 16 gigs of RAM in it. I have a terabyte SSD, but it still just has integrated graphics. Now, for what I do on that, it's totally fine because it's mostly audio editing. But if you want to make a Mac Mini into a video editing station and you want it to be as fast as you can get it, that will require buying an external GPU and connecting it via Thunderbolt. I don't love that. I wish that there would have been a Mac Mini with a better graphics option, at least as like a CTO. Like, hey, if you want to spend all this money, you can add a real GPU. But I think I've softened on that over the last 24 hours, really realizing that the Mac Mini is a pro machine up to a certain point. So if you're doing 3D rendering, you're going to buy an iMac Pro or next year a Mac Pro. The Mac Mini isn't for that type of pro. But if you do what we do, which is like some automation, a bunch of audio processing, some video stuff, a loaded Mac Mini should totally get you through because the loaded 13-inch MacBook Pro can get you through that stuff too. And so while I would like to see a Mac Mini with a real GPU in it, A, eGPU stuff's better than ever, but B, I think it's fine because like I think they say it's a pro machine, but that doesn't mean it has to be for all pros, right? Like there's really not a computer, except maybe the iMac Pro, that is for every type of Mac user working in a professional setting. And I think I'm okay with it. Like I wasn't initially, but I think that it's fine. I think this is a great machine. And I think that people who need a Mac Mini have a lot to be thankful for today, way more than they had to be thankful 2 days ago. And so yeah, Federico, like you're looking at the i7 6-core. I bought the i5 because mine, I don't use Plex. I'm not transcoding on mine. Mine is really a file server and does some network stuff. So I just kind of bought the middle of the road one because I'm going to use it for, my last one's a 2011. So I've gotten 7 years out of it. I like to get 7 years out of this one. So I just went middle of the road, and I think it's going to be a huge upgrade for me and for anyone else who is using a Mac Mini at this point.
All right. Very nice. So I'll wait until I actually have a new desk and understand how much space I have available. I will look into the people in the chat room are saying the Dell Ultra Sharp could be an option. So I'll see which one I prefer, and I think that I think in the month of November, I should be able to have my new setup in theory. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Keep us posted on that. I'd like to see what you end up with. And the Mac Mini is so great because you can just tuck it under the display and it's like takes up, very little space. And I know people were clamoring for it to be smaller. I don't really care. In fact, one thing they did do is that the ports on the back, at least power and Ethernet, line up with where they do on the old system. And so if you're like me and mine's underneath my TV, I'm just going to unplug my old one and plug the new one in. Like, I'm not going to disassemble my entire like TV situation to get to this thing. Or if you're Mac Stadium and you have, hundreds and hundreds or thousands of these things, you can be able to slot them in more easily without doing a lot of reconfiguration stuff, which is like a nice thing that using the same chassis provides. So I'm glad that's the same. Mike, you've talked on and off about a Mac Mini. Is this enough to push you over the edge?
This is something I am going to do. I just am not sure when, because what I want to do with it is like set up like a home server situation, which is more than just buying the machine. I need the time to do it. So this is like a project that I will undertake at some point in the near future, I think, because it's like, okay, I don't have a home server. There's a bunch of things I would want to do with one. So I need to kind of like get the machine, sit down, set it all up, like work out how I want to connect the thing. Do I want to connect it to my iMac in some way so I can have like network attack storage? Like, what do I want to do? And then I'm going to work it out. I think we should talk about this at some point,
yes,
where we can help Mike understand what he wants to do with a home server, and then I'm probably going to go for it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to dive into that with you. Mine will be here next week. I ordered it yesterday, so maybe I'll unbox it on the show next week. That's what people want to hear. Unboxing Mac Mini.
Yeah. This sounds really good.
Real quickly before we move into iPads, I think we should mention that the MacBook Pro is going to be updated next month, air quotes, with an option to put the Vega mobile graphics chipset in it. So this is a derivative of what's in the iMac Pro. This has been shipping in a bunch of other notebooks. Apple's late to the game on this. But they say that the new graphic options will deliver 60% faster performance for video editing, 3D design, and rendering workloads. So I looked into this yesterday because I knew this chipset existed, but I wasn't super familiar with it. And seeing some videos on YouTube and reading some articles, if you buy a MacBook Pro with this in it, starting next month, it is going to be drastically faster for GPU based tasks. I assume it's only going to be in the 15. I couldn't find anything saying that for sure, but again, looking at what else is on the market, these things are big and hot, so they end up in 15-inch notebooks. I'm sure it'll hurt the battery life. But if you need a MacBook Pro as like a video workstation, your life's getting ready to be a lot better if you buy one of these. So we'll keep an eye on this when they come out, and I'm sure there'll be a review of it somewhere. But I just wanted to kind of point that out because it was buried in like the MacBook Air press release, and now it's on the MacBook Pro page, but sort of a quieter story. And then there was no iMac, and the iMac assumedly would use the same chips that are in the Mac Mini or related chips where you have quad-core and 6-core. We talked last week about what would make me happy with the iMac, getting rid of the non-retina, getting rid of the spinning drives. This makes me feel good about the spinning drive going away because assumedly the iMacs will all move to the T2 architecture as well. But they didn't make the cut this time. My guess is that they had a lot of stuff going on in the Mac team, and they just didn't get these done in time. So maybe we'll see these as a press release at some point, probably after the new year. We had some people on Twitter asking, like, hey, I've been in the market for an iMac. What do I do? The iMacs now are good. I would say if you're especially looking at the 5K and you can hold off, my guess is that they would be 6-core machines. My hope would be that they would have better cooling because even the Retina 5K iMac now can be loud. So if you can get a high-end iMac, I'd maybe wait. I don't normally say that, but I feel like the next revision could be a big deal. Now, if you're looking at a 21-inch, a 4K, they'll be better, but I don't think they have as much ground to make up. So maybe if you need to do that, a smaller one, go for it. But I think if you're in the market for a 5K iMac, I would hold on until the new ones are out.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I haven't done this. It's like, how long is it going to be? There is a frustration now where it's like, well, now we have the next thing to keep asking about. It's like, oh man, why can't we just be chill on the Mac strip? It's like, where's the Mac Mini? Where's the iMacs now? Like, that's going to be the next thing when we're 4 years away and there's no new iMac. That'd be fun. No? No?
It'd be the opposite of fun.
Oh, okay. Today's show is brought to you by PayPal. With PayPal, you can rely on a trusted payments partner that processes over 25 million payments per day. Let me tell you a story about a PayPal customer who uses PayPal to handle their payments processing. Once an attorney in New York City, Linda transformed her hobby of locating hard-to-find items and turned it into a thriving luxury consignment company called Linda's Stuff. What was once a passion project is now a 100-person company in a 93,000 square foot facility. As a company specializing in high-end previously owned goods, reputation is everything to Linda Stuff. Integrity and trust are a critical part of how the company operates. From day one, Linda has counted on PayPal to help give her customers confidence and protect her business from fraud, even when selling internationally. She has counted on PayPal every step of the way. When it comes to your growing business, PayPal is a payments partner for today and tomorrow. Visit paypal.com/growth to set up a business account today. Sign up for free right now at paypal.com/growth. Our thanks to PayPal for their support of this show and Relay FM. The main event. Everyone was waiting for it. I think it paid off. New iPads. These new iPads, they're very exciting, gentlemen. I said this on Upgrade. I've been thinking about it, and I think I mean it. I am more excited for these iPads than I was for the iPhone X.
Oh,
because the iPad is the device I care about most anyway, right? This is how, and I have wanted new hardware for a while, especially on the larger size, and they have effectively delivered in every thing that I was looking for and over-delivered in certain places. Like, for example, Face ID. Face ID working in all four orientations seems like magic to me. I was hoping at best that we would get two, right? And fearing that it would just be one.
Yeah. I saw it working upside down, and it was just it just worked. Like nothing.
So we're
fancy,
assuming that the difference is whatever's
really
in
nice.
the A12X to do this, right? Because I mean that would be my assumption. Like, why can't the iPhones do it?
I think they said in the keynote it was a combination of making changes to the Face ID sensors and the neural network. So it seems like that's all hardware, I guess. Like, and then the software that runs in the neural engine, which is like not software, but is software. So it seems like this is more than just the processor. People say both things with the iPhone. I wish it was just more forgiving. So if you're laying down and the phone's upright, it would work. But
yeah, that's all I want. I don't need to use my iPhone upside down, right?
Right. But it's a must on the iPad, and so I'm glad they've gotten it right.
Yeah, it would have been a disaster, right? Because neither orientation would have been right. There would have been problems with either. So yes. I'm super excited that it's all of them. The new design is really exciting. I love the flat edges. It looks so good to me. It's funny because this was the design that wouldn't go away, right? On the iPhone, right, which started with the 4 and went all the way up to the SE, and still is there, right, with the chamfered edges and the flat edges. But there's just something about it on the iPad that looks really friggin' good, and I'm very excited about it. Federico, how does it feel to hold though?
I was thinking about the design. I was kind of worried, and I wrote this in my
I know, look at you. You're so cool with your first impressions. You're like a pro blogger now.
Yeah. Well, something like that. I was concerned that it was going to look and feel chunky to hold. But in practice, it's really nice. I feel like the flat edges, they contribute to increasing the grip of the device, which is important when you have bezels so small. I feel like it's easier to hold, and also it's got this I was thinking about the look. It's got this look that is a mix of like the iPhone 4 aesthetic, but also this kind of 70s type retro look. It reminds me of an old Sony product.
Why is that?
Almost like it's got the Sony aesthetic. I don't know, but I was thinking about it. Like, why do I associate this look not just with the iPhone 4, but also with
Maybe
an old
it's the
Sony
rounded
product.
edges of the screen.
And
okay, go for it.
hold on. I looked into it and I remembered that when Apple went to trial against Samsung, you remember that a bunch of iPhone prototypes came out. One of them was called the Joni iPhone. Joni as a play on Sony, but also Joni Ive. So the Joni prototype, it was made to resemble old Sony electronic, like an old Sony gadget from the 70s or the 80s. And it's got that square look, that flat edge, and the curve and the camera bump. And that is why it reminds me of a Sony product, of the golden age.
My word, look at that.
the Joni iPhone. Yeah. So that's why, and the speaker grill and the cutouts, like it's very reminiscent of that, which is kind of funny to think about how Apple prototypes all of these designs, and eventually they sort of come back either for practical purposes or for fashion purposes or just because they look good. Anyway, it looks really nice in practice. It doesn't feel thick. It doesn't feel chunky. It actually feels impossibly thin, especially the big one, the 12.9.
How they have made the iPads thinner. I can't work it out.
The big one, the big one really makes an impression because you're used to have this huge tablet, and now it's smaller and lighter
it's
and
fake.
thinner, and it's very nice. It feels very nice. The small one, the 11-inch one, at first sight, it kind of looks like one of those old Android tablets that didn't have a 4:3 form factor aspect ratio. Because it's longer on the in landscape, essentially. It's wider. It looks kind of weird in photos. I think it's fine in practice.
With this change, do you know if it shows apps in the full compact, like in the full size class? Okay.
I don't think it does. At least not in the simulator. It does not. Yeah, so I know.
So I've ordered both, right? And I'm interested to try them out to see if like I actually do still want both in my life, because everyone that I know that has been, including you, including Marco, has said to me, and Jason as well, like, you're only going to need the 12.9 now because it's small enough and light enough. But I still want to see it for myself. Like, I'm still kind of holding out reservation, because it's like, I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro, right? If I see a 15-inch, the 15-inch looks like a battleship still. And this is still kind of the same difference, right? It's still like 2 inches of difference. So I'm keen to see how it ends up working out. Now, of course, it was blown out of proportion with the 12.9-inch iPad Pro because it always had the bigger bezels, right? So it's always been like massively larger than the other iPad size, you know, like especially with the 10.5 because the screen got bigger but the bezels got smaller. And I'm super excited to see what the 12.9 looks like, but I'm still unconvinced that, like, for the way that I use the iPad Pro, that I will only want one of them. So I need to see it for myself, and the only way I can do that is by ordering them both.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So anyway, we were talking about the design. It looks good and it feels good when you hold the iPad. I want to talk about quickly the compatibility mode that sort of a bunch of people were talking about on Twitter, and actually there's a couple of videos that Apple published under the Tech Talks channel, sort of developer videos that you can watch. It's especially the first one. It's an 8-minute video that explains how developers can adapt their apps for the new iPad Pros. And one of the changes is that the iPad Pro, the 11-inch, so the new 10.5 essentially, does not have the same aspect ratio as the old one. So if your app has basically been hard-coded to check for that aspect ratio, it's not going to work well with the new safe area insets approach that Apple has been pushing since the iPhone 10 days with the virtual home.
So this is kind of what we saw with the Apple Watch too, right? Where like because the screen edges are curved. There's different considerations needed.
But also, there's the problem on iOS devices is that you have this virtual home indicator that can conflict with tab bars, especially if you code a custom tab bar that doesn't use the native APIs and you don't use storyboards and all that. So the thing about these new iPads in split view, so because you can put multiple apps in split view, let's assume that you're using one app that has been updated for the new iPads and has been linked against the iOS 12.1 SDK. So one app has done all of the things they're supposed to do to work well on the new iPad Pro, but the other app in split view hasn't. So you're using an app that's been updated and an app that has not been updated. The result on the new iPad Pros is compatibility mode, which is essentially a punishment for the app that has been updated, because the old one that is causing problems will be put in this kind of letterbox mode. So Apple is going to force a safe area inset on both apps. So even the new one that has been updated will be put into this safe area mode, this compatibility mode, so that it can work with the other app that has not been updated. So you will see, I think it's going to look like a black bar, like a thin black bar all around both apps, so that the virtual home indicator can be unobstructed by the other app. Which means that developers better update their apps for the new iPad Pros. But it also means that as long as you have an app that has not been updated and you try to use that in split view, looking at you, Google, every other app will suffer if you try to put that app in split view with the old one. Based on what I heard from first-hand and second-hand sources and friends who worked on this stuff, this was a lot of work. Like it's been months in the making. Like people were working on this stuff many months ago, and it's a lot of work to come up with this compatibility mode and find a way to make it work easily for users, but also reliably, and to find a solution that works for old apps and apps that have also been updated. It sounds easy, but under the hood, I don't think it was easy. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's going to be a shame.
If they had done a different screen size, if they had kept the X and Y axis like the same proportions, would this have been a problem if they just scaled it up to like whatever it is?
I think it would have been a problem to the extent that the problem on the iPad is the split view. It's that you're using two apps at the same time, and one of them can be all good and updated and the other is not. And the virtual home indicator is sitting in the middle of them. So because there's that indicator, it becomes a problem even for the app that has been updated for the new iPad Pro. So even if the screen was the same...
So it's going to be on both then? It's going to be on the 11 and the 12.9 will have the same problem, right? Because of the home indicator.
Yeah, because you have that home indicator, which is kind of long, actually, on the iPad. You have that one in the middle, so that causes problems. Hopefully, this will be resolved quickly, but still, this compatibility mode is in place for all of those old apps.
Well, I guess we can, it's like one of those things. I think it will take time, but it will happen. Like, there's still apps that I use every day for the XS Max that I can see haven't been updated, right? Like, this is just... If you're on the bleeding edge of iOS hardware, this is something that you're used to by now. That like it just takes time, but developers get there. It's like Google will be the joke for a while, but we know that they'll do it. They've always done it. It just takes them a long time, so we'll just have to live with it until then. I want to talk about a couple of spec stuff. Now, we already know the A12X is super powerful. Like, it's amazing, more powerful than basically anything else, right? Like, I was listening to ATP Live last night because I'm on Eastern time, so I could do that. And they were kind of joking about how the fact that, like, this iPad, the A12X, is, like, more powerful than any laptop chip that Apple ships right now. It's just this obscene amount of power. I want to get into a minute of comparing those because I know Stephen has a really good analogy that I want us to talk about. But I want to talk about RAM because there's been some stuff about the RAM in these machines. Federico, what's going on here?
Again, based on what I'm hearing, all the non-1 terabyte models, so 64, 256, and 512, they have 4 gigs of RAM. The 1 terabyte model has 6 gigs of RAM. And my understanding is that this was necessary to handle that amount of storage. So to have more memory to manage the fact that you're using a 1 terabyte iPad. Apple, of course, is not talking about RAM, but people have been digging into the code, and Steve Troughton-Smith found code strings that suggested that the new iPad Pros had 6 gigs of RAM. But what I'm hearing, and some other people are also hearing, is that that's only for the 1 terabyte model, and it was necessary for storage management, essentially. So I want to run Geekbench, of course, on these things. If I'll end up with a 1 terabyte version, I don't know yet. But yeah, it would have been nice to know. But Apple is never going to talk about RAM publicly.
Do you think that like that RAM will make an effective daily impact? Like you need it for the storage, but do you think it's going to make the actual iPad run any differently?
I don't know. I think it will be. I don't think it will. I think you would be hard pressed to find apps on the iPad Pro that require more than 4 gigs. Also, in the future, I don't think Apple will ever do something like only the 1 terabyte 2018 iPad Pro can access this feature. Like I could see them limit certain functionalities based on generation, not based on storage size of a specific generation. So I think it'll be fine.
If it's like the RAM in the 10R versus the 10S, but it's needed for storage management, which I don't know if I fully understand, then in practice it probably won't make a difference, right? Like if they've done it because they need it from a technical perspective, chances are side by side you would never notice, whoa, this one only has 4, it does this, but this one has 6, so it can do this other thing. Like I would imagine in practice they're effectively identical.
So let's talk about the power of these machines. They're incredibly powerful, right? And can it be used to the full effect of the power?
I don't think. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that right now you're only seeing half of the bigger picture for the iPad because there's the big missing piece is the software. One of my disappointments from this event is that we didn't see any Pro app by Apple for the iPad Pro. We just got the hardware. So there's a lot riding on next year's WWDC and what Apple is going to do in terms of iPad software. And if they're going to show that these powerful iPad Pros can run things like Logic or Xcode or Final Cut, for example. I think right now, yes, you can buy a new iPad Pro and you can run reminders on it, which is fine. You can run, Spark email. Not to say that those apps are, it's not a criticism for those apps. It's just,
that they're not going to grind everything to a halt.
No, I mean, I had a demo of the new Pixelmator photo app, which now we're talking about, this prosumer type product that uses machine learning to apply modifications to photos, like really powerful stuff. You can have multiple layers, you can do all kinds of edits. But I still think,
and of course, Photoshop, right? Like
Photoshop is coming to iPad, but
that's no joke, right? Like that is going to be a huge deal
next year. We're still talking 2019 for all of these apps. So
yeah,
I think the ecosystem of iPad software, I think it's grown over the past few years.
Oh, it has.
I don't agree with the with most people that I see on Twitter saying that iPad apps are still like iPhone apps or mini apps. I disagree with that. I think things have changed a lot and people have a short memory.
But they are sitting in the middle right now.
They're in the middle.
Like they were like
yes.
iPhone apps, but like they are getting better. There's a lot of powerful stuff, but we're not at the Mac level yet.
Not yet. Which is
we will. I think it's happening.
I also think it's going to happen, and I think next year is going to be a turning point, both for third-party developers and for Apple. At least that's what I want to believe.
Well, or I would at least say it's either next WWDC or not at all, right? Like everything that's building to it, if they don't make a compelling story for some kind of professional iPad development stuff or just big advancements to the iPads in iOS, which can make it clear that you could make more powerful stuff, I feel like it might not happen, right? Because you've got this hardware, which is as good as it's ever been. You have companies like Adobe investing heavily into iPad, that if you don't make your changes to iOS to kind of indicate an advancement like we had in iOS 11, I just don't know when you would do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, Apple can keep doing the demos of AR apps and photo editing all the time. But at the end of the day, people, if you're going to sell a computer, you can sell it in two ways. Either it's a gaming computer, so people buy it to play video games with good graphics.
Xbox One S performance, right?
Yeah, right.
That was super weird when they...
Sure.
That was very strange. Like, okay, great, but like, where's the controller?
Exactly.
So like, we're really happy.
So either you sell a gaming PC or you sell a computer that people can use for work. Because there's only so much AR that you can do, you know? Like...
Apple will disagree with you, my friend.
Sure. I want to see somebody that doesn't work at an AR company using AR stuff, at least for more than 3 hours a day. Please let me know if you're one of those people. And you don't work at an AR startup or Apple or Google. So either you sell a gaming PC or you sell a computer that is for work. And work apps mean stuff like heavy audio editing or serious 3D graphics or programming or like, all these complex tasks that some apps do exist on the iPad for this stuff, but they're not as powerful as what you can get on a PC or on a Mac. And that is a simple argument. Is it as powerful as what you can get on a desktop computer? No, not yet. So it's going to happen next year. Things seem to be moving in that direction. Is the transition going to be completed by next year? I don't think so. We're going to get, Photoshop. The first version of Photoshop on iPad is coming out next year. I think this is a long process, but it needs to start at some point. And that point seems to be 2019 so far. But we don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know if Apple will participate in this transition that other companies seem to foresee coming on the horizon. Does Apple also see this transition happening with iPads actually turning into computers? Maybe. USB-C seems to be a pretty fascinating indication of that. We can talk about it maybe.
Let's talk about USB-C. But before we do, Stephen, there is an analogy that you've made, which is really cool, and I want you to say it here too.
Yes, I talked about this on a members-only podcast we have here at Relay, but the iPad Pro feels like a supercar to me in the sense that you've built something that is incredibly powerful. Like the technology is just cutting edge. It looks great. Like this looks like an exciting product, and it's an aspirational product, but one that maybe struggles in like everyday life. Like some problems that some supercars have is you have all this power, but you can't put it down on the street. Like you just
you can go 200 miles an hour, but the laws stop you from driving it that fast.
Yeah, or the physics of the world keep you from using all that power because you just can't put it down appropriately. And that's how I feel about the iPad Pro. It's like the hardware, like this hardware looks incredible. Like it looks really good. I love the new industrial design. The A12X seems bananas. Apple keeps throwing shade at Intel, saying, hey, we're faster than like 90-something% of notebooks sold last year. That includes almost every MacBook and MacBook Pro. But I think that's about Apple building the case to move to ARM. And I feel like every time they have a new chip and an iPad, it's like, oh yeah, that could totally run on my laptop. It'd be fine. But for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, I think even the two of you, the software doesn't unlock all that power. We can talk about USB-C specific examples, but in looking at Photoshop, that's like the first thing that I've seen that I could use. Like, okay, this would really like take advantage of what this machine has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other high-end apps that sort of tap into that too. But most of the time, I don't need all that power. And I feel like I don't have access to it because of like some fundamental things in iOS that need to change. There was that report that I think Gurman had that iOS 12 had a bunch of stuff in it that got delayed or got pushed off because they were focusing on stability and performance increases on older devices. And they hit those two goals. Like iOS 12 is way nicer on older devices and seems to be far less buggy than iOS 10 or 11 ever were. So now, like to your point, Mike, it is time, like WWDC 2019, is time to see what Apple can do with all this iPad hardware. And if they want it to be a computer replacement for even more people, because the iPad is a computer replacement 100% for lots of people, and it could be for lots more people who just don't realize it yet. But if they want to move into the next like bigger circle out from that center, they need it to do more things. They need it to do things that it does now in a more efficient manner. And that is a story that only Apple can tell, right? Like third-party app developers are handcuffed by iOS in a lot of different ways that they aren't on the Mac, that they aren't on Windows. And Apple needs to look at those restrictions and really work in a way that developers can tap into what this iPad can do. And I'm super optimistic about that because in the hardware we're getting, it's clear that Apple is paying attention to what people want. Things like a pencil that always charges and is connected with you. We're going to talk about the pencil again in a second. An adjustable smart keyboard, USB-C. These are things that pros want out of an iPad. And so if they've said yes, yes, yes to all these hardware things, I hope they say yes, yes, yes to all the software things we want as well. And I'm optimistic about that until proven wrong.
Like one of the key things that you can say, okay, that there's clearly a difference in the way that they think about the iPad is that they've moved from Lightning to USB-C. Like that is a sign of something, right? That seems positive to me. It's like, okay, we've put an actual computer connector on this thing now. Federico, what do you think USB-C actually means for the iPad line? Like, what can we do right now? What can't it do right now? Like, I'm interested in your thoughts on this.
Right now, it seems to be mostly an evolution of what we already had before. So you can do camera import. You can connect to high resolution displays. And Apple seemed to suggest that you can do multiple of those things at once. Like if you have an adapter, you can connect to a display and also do camera import.
Yeah, it does what USB-C should do, right? Like it does the chaining.
You can use it you can use your iPad as a power bank for your iPhone by charging other devices.
Which is so hilarious, but brilliant. It's brilliant.
I was on a plane and I had my iPad fully charged, and I thought, it would be nice if I could actually charge my new Sony headphones, which have USB-C, from my iPad. So that would be kind of nice. I think, or I should say, I want to believe that USB-C is a sign of more to come in terms of adding proper I/O support to the iPad Pro line. I think it's ridiculous, honestly, that you still cannot connect a USB-C drive to the iPad Pro and have it show up as a location in the Files app. Especially now. I've mentioned this on Connected multiple times at this point. And that's like obvious material for iOS 13 or even an update to iOS 12. Our friend Steve Troughton-Smith on Twitter is actually making this argument right now that it is extremely trivial to write this kind of disk access on iOS with the existing APIs and frameworks that are available to read stuff from a USB drive and give it a native UI in files. I'm pretty sure that would solve most of the problems that people have when it comes to file management and storage and backups on iOS and the iPad. But also, right now, if you try and use USB-C with an external monitor, my understanding is that it basically treats the second monitor as a window for specific portions of your content. So if you're using iMovie, you can see the video on the big display, or if you use a Keynote, you can mirror the presentation on the display. It's not like you're actually adding a second display to the iPad. You're just putting some parts of your content onto the second display. So it's not like on a Mac that you actually have a display management screen in preferences, and you can see I'm using two displays with my computer now. That seems kind of obvious that in the future you will be able to use your iPad Pro on the go or on a desk, and then when you sit down and you connect a USB-C cable, you're gonna have your iPad Pro and you're gonna have a second display running iPad apps, but much bigger. Does that mean that those apps will use some kind of windowing system? Does it mean that you're gonna have split view at a much bigger size with perhaps multiple tabs for each app in the split view? Does it mean that you're gonna do multi-app split view, like 3 apps at once or 4 apps at once on the big display? That stuff could be done in theory, with these iPads. And that kind of CPU and USB-C and an external display. But it's not possible right now on these iPads. So my interpretation of USB-C is that it's a first step to take the iPad more seriously as a computer by giving it's a strong message to give it a different connector than the phone. It's sort of moving away from that idea that we've been hearing since 2010, that the iPad is a big phone. Now the iPad shares the same connector that is on a MacBook. And that's a powerful message, saying this is not almost like saying this is not an iOS device anymore, this is a computer that runs iOS. And that is just, I feel like the connector is an example of that theory. But right now it's a theory.
Yeah, it's a powerful message once they actually say something.
Exactly.
Right. It's like they've rolled out a big stage and they haven't like gone out there yet to tell the story. And it's like the possibility is there, but they haven't done it. What I keep thinking about is, let's just say all this like magical stuff is coming in iOS 13. What if it had come out in iOS 12 and we were now, 3 or 4 months into iOS 12, and you can do all this stuff, but the lightning port's the problem, right? I can mount an SD card or bring an external drive in, or I can run more apps at once, or like files is like a real file manager. But you have to deal with lightning adapters, and lightning is slow and annoying. We would all be scrambling for USB-C and be really glad it's here, and it would be a more complete story. But instead, we're in this weird world of like, well, it seems like they're going to do something. They have all the cards lined up, but they haven't actually executed yet. So I agree with you. It's a big statement, but they need to finish the statement.
I'm thinking of the meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, of him having all the
with all the paper on the wall and the strings lining. Yeah, this is how it is. This is what it's like trying to understand where the iPad's going. It's like there are all these signals, and we're just trying to find a link between them.
It's USB-C and all these things. Yeah, it's everything is a theory at this point.
We added you actually get a 18-watt USB-C charging brick in the box now, which is great.
Nice. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. Hooray. That's what USB brought us. So we added USB-C. We lost the headphone jack.
Yeah. It's a problem for example, for DJs or people
that watch movies on planes.
People who watch movies on planes. People who make music. People who use the headphone jack for all kinds of creative purposes. It's a problem, and you're gonna have to buy a dongle. And this is basically the same discussion we had when this stuff happened on the Mac before. Now it's happening on the iPad Pro. So it's a shame. I feel like the headphone jack was more needed on the iPad than the iPhone. Personally, this is it doesn't affect me. I know that it affects other people, and so I get why they're going to complain about it. So I get it.
I just find it frustrating. So I have AirPods. I don't use them on planes for reasons we spoke about recently, because you drop them and they're gone forever, or you may have trouble hearing them.
Enough.
They're not loud enough. That's another big problem. And so I was on several flights last week, and I used my Lightning earbuds, and they were fine. Still not loud enough, but at least I'm not going to lose them. And I could transition from listening to a podcast on my phone to watching something on my iPad. Just unplug it from my phone and plug it into my iPad. Now that's not going to be possible. Apple does sell a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter, so I guess I'm just going to have dongles for this now. But the thing that just really bugs me is like the iPad is so flexible because people use it in so many different ways, and a headphone jack, like whatever, it's old fashioned, but like you can't tell me it's because of room in the iPad Pro. Like it's not about room, it's about wanting to make the statement.
Totally.
And they think that people have moved on, and I just find it frustrating because it limits the flexibility of the device. If it had two USB-C ports, then I could have power and headphone. But I got a tweet or an email from somebody saying they work as a AV tech in a theater, and they use iPads to play music and stuff during productions. And that was great because you could have it charging, because like in a production environment, you want power to all of your devices. But now that's not feasible. I just find it frustrating. I think it's going to be something that I definitely miss more on my iPad than I did on my phone, just because I use my iPad in various ways that I don't always use my iPhone XS. So it's a bummer. It's the saddest thing about this hardware to me by far, and it's going to take some getting used to.
I'm not going to let it ruin it, Like, I've been thinking about it, like I'm annoyed, but I'm not going to let this ruin it. I just need to work out what my situation, like, what am I going to do, right? Because I bought a dongle, which I'll put on my over-ear headphones that I keep in my travel backpack.
Yeah. So
I'll just keep it on there. But if I use that dongle, I can't charge at the same time. So do I need a different dongle that maybe I could charge? But I guess it's going to be a long-term thing for me. I don't really want to get Bluetooth over-ear headphones, really, because I don't want to have another thing that I need to think about charging. So I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Like Apple might bring out these HeadPods, and then maybe that changes everything again. I don't know. I'm just going to have to wait and see. But for now, I have a dongle on the way. My dongle arrives on Friday. I'm so excited. And then I'm just going to put it on my headphones that go in my bag, and I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to see how it goes over time. But
yeah,
it's a frustration, but I will let this one go because I think everything else is so awesome.
Oh, boy.
What do you think about the price increases?
People are upset, and I think yes, they are more expensive, and especially
like a couple of $100 more or something.
It's
right?
especially bad for euros. I think. You can easily get to the point where you're spending 2,000 and couple hundred euros to get an iPad Pro, and the keyboard is like keyboard is like 2,200 euros. It's like that's an insane amount of money for the keyboard folio. But
so I would say, just on the actual price of the iPads, I care more about the price increase in dollars, because that's what Apple is saying the product is worth. The issue when you go outside of dollars, especially into Europe and into the UK right now, is there is a lot of price changes because Apple is betting on economy changes, and I think that's a different argument.
Well, do people necessarily care about that? Like, it's still 2,000 euros. And
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, that if the iPad stayed the same price in America and different prices in Europe, then that's a different discussion, because that's purely based upon economic changes that Apple's trying to hedge against. So, like, I think that the conversation is more interesting about, like, what is the price in dollars, because in theory that shouldn't change, and because that's where Apple's based, and they're not potentially not hedging against any economic changes. So yes, I know it's good. I know everything's more expensive in the UK and Europe, but that's been the case for all Apple products over the last year. They're all getting more expensive because the economy is changing.
Really bad. Like,
I'm not saying it's not bad. Like, it is bad. Like, I just spent an obscene amount of money on these things, but I'm just saying that, like, they did put up the price in dollars. And why did they do that? Like, that's kind of because it's like, that is a discussion which is slightly different to the discussion of putting prices up outside of the US.
Sure.
I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying it's different because they've been putting up prices in outside of the US all year without changing the prices in the US, like of all their products. And also they're disproportionate. So like what they're going up in percentage in the US is different to outside of the US. And there's reasons for that, which is not just Apple putting up their prices to increase ASP or whatever. They're like doing that plus something different. But the iPad Pros have gone up in price everywhere. So I think that is a more kind of pertinent discussion to look at this iPad Pro. Why have they made the iPad Pro more expensive? Which is not just they're hedging against Brexit or whatever. So that's a really long way of saying that the iPad Pros are more expensive.
Yeah, I don't love it. I think that this stuff should be accessible to more people over time, not fewer people over time.
Yeah, but I can look at these devices and see why they're more expensive, though. Like, I can look at it and be like, yeah, okay, I see that.
But they don't have to be. Like, they don't.
Well, they don't, in theory.
This is like a Tim Cook Apple kind of move. And so like, something like the Smart Keyboard. Okay, the new Smart Keyboard Folio has a lot more material to it. It's like $200, which is bonkers. But I can see how they got there on that. Like I can see it in some of the devices, like you can. But my biggest problem is not that I can't see how Apple justifies it, but it's just like the core problem that this stuff. If the iPad Pro is the future of Apple's computers, like then why is it $200 more than it used to be, than it was 2 days ago?
200 does feel like a lot. Right, like that does feel like a lot. 100, I would be more like willing to understand. 200 is a lot
on a product that's $1,000. $200 is a big percentage, and yes, you can get like the 10.5 is still for sale at $649, I believe. But like that's Apple's favorite move is to make the old one cheap. But it's the problem I have with that cheap iMac. If someone buys the entry level of anything on Apple's line, is that the lasting impression Apple wants to leave? Is that product something that Apple can be proud of? Now, in the case of the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, yes, it's still a really good iPad. I'm actually going to hold on to mine for a while because I haven't ordered an iPad. But the Apple's like mantra of like things just slowly ratchet up over time, I don't like it because I buy a bunch of this stuff. I don't like it because it every time they do it, it forces some segment of their customer base either into a purchase they really can't afford, but they sort of figure it out, or it pushes people out. And it's just not a good look for like the world's wealthiest company to continue to raise prices slowly over time. Like Apple's not a charity. Apple's stock price is based on ASP and on future growth. And the way Apple sees growth is to make more money, and to do that, unless they're selling a lot more of these things, they make the price go up. So the people who buy them pay more. They end up making more at the end of the quarter. I understand that Apple has to do that because they're a publicly traded company. Like, I'm not saying that Apple should like make everything free and we should all like get and live in commune with Tim Cook. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is there is a middle ground between those two things where Apple used to be really good at, hey, we have this whole new thing. You get all these new features. It's the same price as it was yesterday. Like if you spend the same $800, you get.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like it happens very much anymore.
No, and I think it should. Like Apple's always been dinged for being more expensive, and from time to time they try to fight that and saying that like the iMac Pro costs this much. If you build a Dell, it's $1,000 more. Like they sometimes get into that, but the way you fix the perception problem of being too pricey is like keep the prices the same when you make the products better. And if that eats into your margin a little bit at first, I think Apple should be more willing to do that. And it's frustrating because it hurts their customers, and it's just like that's just a bad look.
Because it's like going back to my point of like I can see why it's more expensive, right? Like they've made these like things, they look more technically impressive. Apple also chooses to make those advancements, right? And then it could be argued that they make them more technically impressive so they can charge more money, right? Like it's like a chicken and egg situation. It is difficult. It is a shame that we don't see what you were saying, right? They're like, and this one is, boom, the same price as the old one, and then the old one gets cheaper. and it just that doesn't feel like it's happening as much anymore. I'm keen to see what happens to the average selling price, because if the average selling price goes up, then we'll know exactly what happened, right? That like they're just trying to make more money,
right? Because like Apple, like we can say all this, but Apple hasn't been proven wrong yet. Like the iPhone ASP. So we had this conversation with the iPhone 10. Like holy cow, it's $1,000. The ASP rose and people bought the iPhone 10. So this year, the 10s and the 10s Max and the 10R, that ASP is going to continue to rise. And
if that happens and you're Tim Cook, what are you going to do?
You're going to keep doing it. You're going to find where the limit is, and Apple hasn't hit that wall yet.
No.
At some point, I believe that they will. Maybe this is the iPad maybe the iPad wall is here. Maybe it's not. I wish they would quit playing chicken with it and make products that they can be proud of at all price points.
Can we talk about the accessories?
Yes.
This new Apple Pencil it's basically everything I wanted. I cannot believe that they have done all of the stuff that they have done in one go. The matte finish excites me because I just think it will feel nicer. Can you confirm, Federico Vitici?
It does feel much nicer than the old one. It feels more compact, less. I don't know. It feels like a more serious tool, maybe, than the old one. Less like a toy, more like a functional tool that feels nicer in the hand. Yeah.
There were two features that I've wanted since the thing came out, and I've said it basically from day one. One was for it to be flat on the sides, so it wouldn't roll away, because the magnets was a garbage idea of like the weighting in it. That was a silly idea. It's not true. It doesn't stop it. It just doesn't stop it, right? Like it's a really fun thing to say that you weight it so it won't roll, but that's just not how physics work.
And I try to make it roll off the table. One flat side helps. I don't think it's still as good as you will like it to be. It still rolls.
No, it will be. It will be, because I understand the parameters of this, because I have pens that are just the same. It will roll, but you have to roll it. But with one flat side, the way that you would typically put it down, it won't roll.
Right. Like
if you throw it at the table, yes, it's going to roll, but that's not what you're doing, right? So one flat side is exactly what I was looking for. That was like the minimum of it. So I'm super excited about that. The other was to have a button. Now, it doesn't have a button, but it doesn't. The point is I don't care about whether it has a button or not. I care about what the button enables, and what the button enables is functions. So in Notes, you can switch tools, but the thing that I'm most excited about is what developers can do with it, which is basically anything they want. And this is a quote from Federico's hands-on article. Federico Vitici says, "In my hands-on demo, I was shown an upcoming version of Procreate with a radial contextual menu that appeared upon double-tapping the pencil. This is my dream.
Yes.
This is everything I wanted."
So the way this works is you're going to have in settings some options to set the behavior of the double tap gesture on the pencil. You can choose to switch between the tool and the eraser. You can choose to switch between two recently used tools, and also you can choose to show the color palette. And the way this works for developers, they can either implement the system setting. So if you make a drawing app and you have an eraser, you can read the system-wide setting and conform to that. Or you can override the system setting and you can provide your own functionalities. This is what
I love this.
This is what Procreate does.
It's like, do what the system does, or do literally whatever you want. Like, I kind of like that choice.
Procreate at a toggle in its own settings that basically confirmed if you wanted to enable the custom Procreate double tap feature, which is this radial menu that you double tap on the pencil and you get this menu pop up on the screen with some options. It's very nice.
Because even in Photoshop, they showed the double tap being zoom in and zoom out,
exactly.
right? Which is
it's a custom thing.
Custom.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait to see what you do with it. Like, I'm super excited about what might happen to some of these apps that use the Apple Pencil. I hope that apps that aren't even necessarily Apple Pencil focused add this functionality as well.
Totally.
Because you can do stuff there. It's basically like a right click.
It's a right click, and I feel like the fact that it's now so easy to carry around the pencil because it just snaps to the top of the iPad, which by the way is very satisfying to do. It's gonna be more. I think it's gonna be more present in an everyday workflow. than the old Pencil that needed management. This one doesn't need,
especially because it charges now
also
too.
charges, and you get the pop up on the screen, the little message that just zooms in.
That little pop up, that looks to me like future iOS design.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's like WebOS is what it looks like.
It looks like WebOS, yes, but there's something about it where it's like there's no other part of iOS that looks like that. Like, and it's almost like it reminds me of some of the AirPower stuff, right? Like the way that charging was shown for AirPower. Rest in peace. So
it's really gone. It's really gone for good.
It looks, it's gone. It's dead, right? Like it's
gone.
100% dead.
The charging pad that shall not be named.
It's never coming. But like I see that, it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's just this little pop up, like this little bubble. It's very cool. But the fact that it magnetically attaches is the thing. That is not going to be a permanent attachment. It won't fall off, but it will fall off. So it's just something to remember. Like you put it in and out of a bag, it's probably going to come off. But that's okay, right? Because
you're not going to lose the cap. Hold on. Because there's no cap.
No. It's going to be like where you would expect it to be. But and I think it's cool that they've added it. The inductive charging is amazing. Like, so, I got these two things that I really wanted, but the magnetic attachment and inductive charging, never expected that. Like, I didn't think they'd ever do the magnetic attachment because it's a difficult thing to do. And inductive charging seems like Apple Pencil 4, honestly, rather than Apple Pencil 2. Like, I'm really excited about this. This is gonna make me use the Apple Pencil even more than I was already using it, honestly. Like, and I'm super excited about it. I feel like I don't need any of my customizations anymore. I don't need something to hold it on because Apple's done that for me, and I don't need to add my grip to it because the Apple Pencil won't roll away anymore. So I would still love to see them make it out of aluminium, but that's just a dream. That's a pipe dream of mine. I'm really excited for the Apple Pencil.
Let's talk about the new keyboard real quick, because I have thoughts. So the new iPad Pro doesn't have a smart keyboard. It's got a smart keyboard folio, which is, as the name suggests, it's a smart keyboard with a folio case that wraps around the back of the iPad. It aligns and attaches to the iPad thanks to the 100 and something magnets that are built into the iPad. And it's
a lot of magnets.
It's a lot of magnets inside. It looked to me like it was the process of attaching it and removing it was a bit more involved than the old smart keyboard. Like, of course, there's an extra layer of the case that you need to manage, but maybe it's something that you get used to quickly. It supports 2 viewing angles. So there's a desktop mode where it's got this steep angle that sort of sits right in front of your face, interior vertical angle. And there's a laptop mode that is more the angle is more ideal for using the iPad on your lap. And in theory, the structure of the folio case should help with laptop use. I am disappointed, though, that all the things that I want an Apple to do have not been done in this product. The keys are not backlit, so still the same setup with the fabric covering the keys, without backlight at all.
I will say, thankfully, it doesn't seem like they've changed the keys.
Doesn't seem like. I think it's the exact same cover, the exact same keys. No media function keys at all. There's no Siri key.
Yep.
There's no home button key, of course, because it's gone. There's but not even the media playback keys that I love on my Bridge keyboard. Those are not in the smart keyboard. But I kind of like it. It doesn't add a ton of bulk to the iPad Pro. I'm gonna get it at first because I have to, because there's no other option.
You need a keyboard.
I need a keyboard. I am concerned that basically the lack of bezels will make it, if not impossible, really hard for companies like Bridge to make the same setup that we have now with the 2 clips and the hinge that basically hold the iPad in place.
Yeah. I'm hoping they could have something that just clamps to the side rather than hinges to the front.
I guess that's what they're going to do. But to the side, there's the true depth camera. So I don't know. Maybe they can figure something out.
Not that high up,
not
though.
that high
You
up.
could do a small amount. I mean, I'm concerned for Bridge because I don't think either of their keyboards are going to work, and they're just shipped a new one.
I'm just surprised.
Yeah, it's rough.
Apple, this company, Apple, I mean, they like money. That's a takeaway from that's a takeaway from this discussion. That this company likes their growing. They're raising prices and money, which is fine because it's a public company. That's what they do. I'm surprised they're not asking for like $400 to make an aluminum keyboard that is backlit as a bunch of stuff. I would give you that money because I
just lean into the greed.
I mean, at this point, sure, I'll throw you a couple $100 extra, but give me an actual keyboard that is backlit and that I can attach to my iPad, because I'm gonna buy the smart keyboard. I'm not going to love it. I already know that I'm not going to love it. I'm going to cover it in stickers, which is fine. Adds a bit of flair to the iPad. And also Mike is going to be happy.
Why is it just in one color? Come on.
I know. Please, Apple, you seem to have an appreciation for money, which I understand. Help me help you, give you more money
wow.
by making a more expensive premium keyboard.
That's great.
Please.
The smart keyboard now has its own webpage on the Apple site. I'm not sure if it did before.
It did.
But skimming through this feels like how Microsoft treats the Surface keyboards, where it's like, it's kind of its own product. Obviously, it doesn't do anything unless you buy the tablet. But they are really leaning into the features of this thing. And like you guys said, there are just not that many new features. I kind of like that it covers the back and the front. I think it looks really nice. Yep. I think it would actually look better with the silver than the space gray. I think the contrast would be nice, but yeah, have some options. Have one with a trackpad. Have one with the backlit keyboard. Microsoft does both in their Surface keyboard covers. It's clearly possible.
My hope for this is just that, so like my pipe dream situation is that they haven't made this product because they haven't got trackpad support in iOS yet, and when they do, there'll be a different product.
I hope so.
And like this is just the one between then and now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna miss the wraparound for the media, like just so you can stand it up. Like where you can wrap the whole keyboard around, just stand it up.
Did you ever have that work? That felt always really floppy to me.
Oh, it worked. I use it all the time. It's always funny on a 10.5 because the angle is basically completely vertical, which always feels like it's going to explode and just fall over, but it never happened to me. I know that's why they have the two angles, right? So one of them is like, they call it desktop, but it's also so you can watch stuff, right? So it's like it's more up, but then the keyboard's always in front, which isn't necessarily what I want. They do sell a smart folio, which does this, right? But I don't really want that. But at least it comes in pink, so great news. Pink and white and gray in that one. But I am excited for this smart keyboard, though. I'm excited for all of it, and we're getting next Wednesday. We're 1 week away, so maybe next week's episode. Well, okay, so I've bought all of it. Steven, you haven't bought any, have you?
I just bought a Mac Mini, no iPad stuff yet.
I think it is best for you to actually try them first because you'll buy one and return it and buy the other one. So I think you need to go to an Apple store and actually hold them.
I want to see it. I'm leaning to the 12.9. I bought the 10.5 and I don't know. I feel like that I want more screen, but yeah, I want to see it in person.
Yeah, I'd been waiting for these though. Like this was my big computer purchase of the year, so I'm excited. Federico, have you ordered anything yet? I know you've been on planes.
Not yet. I just came back home and I'm looking into what I want right now. Into what do I want, the 1 terabyte model? Do I want maybe something less? I don't know. I'm oriented towards the 1 terabyte model. Also, the dates have already slipped at this point.
Yep.
So I was busy yesterday. Then I got on a plane and I realized I'm probably gonna try to walk into the store and see what they have. If possible.
I'm sure they'll have them. Like, I don't think it's going to be
I don't think a lot of people
like
are going to buy these iPad Pros in Rome. I could be wrong.
It took all day for the dates to slip to the next week. So
exactly. There's going to be some in-store stock, I'm sure. So
let's hope for in-store stock. Let's hope that Mike's home delivery comes quickly. I couldn't do in-store pickup for these. It just wouldn't let me, which is, I hate it because I hate waiting at home for stuff like this. But then hopefully we'll have them to talk about next week. And Stephen, will you have your Mac Mini?
It is. I have it coming on the 7th. Now, FedEx is usually late in the day, so I may not have it by the time we record. But I actually just looking at the date, so the MacBook Air is starting to slip a little bit, but the Mac Mini is still shipping on the 7th.
Nice.
What a surprise.
Good job, Mac Mini.
And it can hold. I feel like the Mac Mini is one of those things. They're going to sell the vast majority of them in the first quarter, right? Like everyone who's wanted one.
It's one of those things where I think there were more people that were concerned about it being available than will actually buy it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a funny thing. Like everyone was like, come on, you got to update it. But like no one's really going to buy it.
Sometimes people in the Apple community are upset on principle. Like without
Yes, the principle.
like,
Sure.
why are you not updating the Mac Mini? Well, they did. Are you buying one? No, I'm not.
No? What, am I crazy?
I bought one. I'm in the chosen few.
Yeah. You're doing your duty, right? Like you complained about it and now you're putting your money where your complaint was.
And my home server is falling apart, so it's time. 7 years is a good run for a machine that's on 24/7. So.
Yep.
I think that does it for this week's episode. If you want to find links to stuff we talked about, head over to relay.fm/connected/216. While you're there, you can get in touch via email, or you can do so on Twitter. You can find Mike there as IMYKE. And Mike, of course, is the host of a bunch of other shows here at Relay FM. You can find Federico on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci, and he is the editor-in-chief.
Yes, I'm both. I'm both.
The editor and chief. I love that.
Yeah,
It's editor-in-chief, which is like a weird turn of phrase.
people call me chief
Yeah.
also. Yes.
Sup,
Not really.
Chief?
I've been calling you editor.
Not really. Well, you can call me
Federico.
editor.
Chief Ticci.
And so he's writing about iPads and shortcuts.
He's the Viticci.
Oh my God! Please wrap the show,
good.
Stephen. Please.
That's
Good. I like that.
You can find me on Twitter as ISMH, and I write 512pixels.net and also host a bunch of shows here. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Pingdom, Linode, and PayPal. Until next week, gentlemen, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Adios.